You've got a headache, maybe a stuffy nose from a cold. So what's the first thing you do? You probably reach into your medicine cabinet, right? It's a reflex for most of us. But have you ever really stopped to think about what's actually in those bottles and boxes? Okay, let's get into it, because the world of over-the-counter drugs is way bigger and a lot more complex than you might think.
And when I say bigger, I mean it. Over-the-counter, or OTC drugs, account for a whopping 50% of all medications people buy. Think about that for a second. For every single prescription that a doctor writes, someone else is walking out of a store with something off the shelf. That's a huge part of our healthcare.
And this is what we're talking about, right? These are the usual suspects. Tylenol, Motrin, cough syrup, they're basically fixtures in almost every home. They become our go-to toolkit for all those everyday aches, pains, and sniffles.
And let's be honest, there's a good reason for that. We love them. They're affordable, you can get them practically anywhere, and they're just so convenient. Plus, there's this feeling of empowerment, you know? Being able to take care of minor problems ourselves without having to run to the doctor every single time.
But here's the thing. That convenience, it comes with a responsibility. So in this first section, we're going to pull back the curtain a little and look at some of the secrets that might be hiding in plain sight right there in your own medicine cabinet. All this convenience really leads to a super important question. If these drugs are everywhere, what's the big deal? What are the risks? Because it turns out that safe enough to be on the shelf doesn't mean zero risk. Not at all.
The crucial thing to get is that safe does not mean harmless. People misusing these common drugs actually contributes to hospital stays. But the biggest trap, and this is a big one, is that so many different products with different brand names for totally different symptoms often have the exact same active ingredient. And to make it even more confusing, sometimes manufacturers switch ingredients, and you'd never know unless you read the fine print. This gets especially risky when we're talking about kids and older adults.
This quote just nails one of the biggest hidden dangers: liver damage from acetaminophen. You see, the active ingredient in Tylenol is also a star player in tons of multi-symptom cold and flu products, so it's incredibly easy to double dose without even thinking about it. You take a Tylenol for your headache, and then later you grab a cold medicine. Bam! You could be putting your liver at serious risk.
So, how do we avoid falling into these traps? Okay, for this next section, let's take a little tour of the pharmacy aisles together. We're going to turn all these warnings into a practical guide so you can make smarter and much safer choices.
Okay, first stop, the pain reliever aisle. You've basically got two main teams here. On one side, you have acetaminophen. Think Tylenol. It's great for pain and fever, but its number one risk, like we just said, is liver damage if you take too much. On the other side are the NSAIDs. That's a mouthful. It stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Things like Advil and Aleve. They do pain, fever, and inflammation, but they have their own risks. They can cause stomach problems, and, this is a big one, they can raise your blood pressure.
And while we're on the subject of NSAIDs, we have to talk about aspirin. This is a huge warning, especially for parents. While it's a perfectly common pain reliever for adults, you have to be extremely careful with kids and teenagers. Giving aspirin to a child who has a virus like the flu or chickenpox is linked to Ray's syndrome. It's rare, but it is a very serious condition that can cause brain damage. It's why doctors almost always say, no aspirin for kids.
All right, here's another classic example of that ingredient overlap we talked about. You might take an allergy pill like Benadryl. Its active ingredient is diphenhydramine, which makes you drowsy. But then later that night, you can't sleep, so you reach for an OTC sleep aid, and guess what? The active ingredient is very often the exact same thing, diphenhydramine. You can see how taking both could be a real problem.
Now for the cold and flu aisle. This place can be a total minefield, right? But it's actually simple if you follow one rule. Treat only the symptoms you actually have. If you have a runny nose, you need an antihistamine. Stuffy nose, that's a decongestant. But watch out, they can raise blood pressure. If you have a wet cough that's bringing stuff up, you want an expectorant to thin it out. But for a dry, hacking cough, you want a suppressant to quiet that reflex. The bottom line, don't buy a combo pill with 4 medicines if you only have one symptom.
And for stomach problems, think of it like levels of defense. Antacids like Tums give you fast but short relief. For something that lasts longer, H2 blockers like Pepcid actually reduce how much acid you make. Then you have the heavy hitters, PPIs. They're the strongest, but they come with a really important warning. Long-term use has been linked to a higher risk of bone fractures because they can mess with how your body absorbs calcium.
Okay, I know that was a fire hose of information. So how do you put it all together and actually stay safe? Let's move to our final section, and I'm going to give you 4 simple, golden rules to help you become the master of your medicine cabinet.
It really all boils down to 4 simple steps, super easy to remember.
Number 1. Read the drug facts label. 2. Know the active ingredient. 3. Think about who is actually taking the medicine. And 4. When you have any doubt at all, just ask a professional.
Let's just focus on those first 2 rules for a second, because they are so critical. The brand name on the box, that's just marketing. The active ingredient is the single most important piece of information on there. That's the chemical that actually does the work. Knowing what it is and looking for it is your #1 defense against accidentally taking a double dose.
Rule number 3, considering who's taking the medicine, is absolutely vital. The right dose for a healthy adult could be dangerous for someone else. For little kids under 2, the FDA just says don't use these cough and cold meds without a doctor's explicit okay. For older kids, always use the little cup or syringe that comes in the box, because dosage is usually based on their weight, not just their age. And for older adults, the risk of a bad interaction with other medicines they're taking for things like high blood pressure is much higher.
And this brings us to golden rule number 4. This might be the most powerful and, honestly, the most underused tool that you have. Your pharmacist. They aren't just there to count pills. They are a highly trained, super accessible, and free expert. They can look at what you're buying, check for interactions with your other meds, and make sure you're walking out with the safest, best choice.
So the next time you reach into that cabinet, just pause. Take a beat. Remember, the power to treat yourself comes with the responsibility to inform yourself. You're in the driver's seat. You are the gatekeeper of your own health. So, the question is, are you prepared?